So today I'm talking with Zara Longlands, who is our operations manager here at Digitalent. I thought it would be good to have a quick chat with Zara to go over something that's actually been quite a key thing for us since we implemented it last year from an operations perspective, which is our customer experience platform. Ask Nicely, and we'll talk a little bit about the sort of net promoter score that is being generated off the back of that. So Zara, welcome to Digitales.
Thanks very much.
This is it's got to be the highlight of your career.
I mean, I never thought I'd be on a podcast talking about, the joys of operations.
Yes, is it. So do you want to give everyone a rundown on who you are and what your role is with Digitalent?
Yeah, definitely. So I joined Digitalent. I know you said Digitales. I joined Digitales.
Joined Digitales today.
Yeah. So I joined Digitalent at the start of January. So I'm still relatively new, although surprisingly already at the end of April.
Yeah.
And this was a new role for the company, as you know, not previously or like focused on recruiters rather than, behind the scenes sort of elements.
Yeah.
So kind of my experience has always been in operations across kind of different countries, different industries, tapped into recruitment a little bit before, but not in the kind of industries that you guys are primarily working in. So it's been really interesting to come in and kind of understand these different industries, technical, creative, especially the bits of how the Australian market works versus the UK and then the US market as well.
Yeah.
And then just sort of, it's been great really being able to dip into all parts of the business and, have a look at pretty much everything and talk to everybody. It's actually probably one of the most freeing roles in that way, because you're not just pigeonholed into your little recruitment bit.
Yeah, no, absolutely, yeah. So I mean, yeah, like we mentioned when you came on board, your role touches on every aspect of the business, and you've definitely had a baptism by fire. It's been so much happening, isn't there, in the last since you came on board? There's been, I mean, we pretty much lost track of like everything that you've worked on since you come on board. There's been so many parts to it. I think with the operation side of our business, the journey that we've gone on as a company is very much obviously focusing on sales and marketing, but trying to just like any startup, just out of pure survival, cash flow is king and all of that sort of that mindset is just trying to get the general momentum going to actually get the business up on its feet, expand our portfolio of clients and candidates, and to obviously grow the team. And our initial focus was obviously growing recruiters, because they obviously are the sort of beat the heart from a sales perspective and all the rest of it. But I've always been, and Dylan's always been, really passionate about trying to do the right thing from an operations perspective, and that's why from day one which we probably didn't need to do in hindsight, we chose a CRM. Back when I was like a one-man band, I was thinking I need the CRM in place now, because if we fast forward a year, you can't just like work from spreadsheets, and we try to do the basics from an ops perspective. And I think it was only when Alex came on board actually as our sort of first full-time employee over in Australia that we actually realised that we didn't have anything documented properly. The processes were like pretty much non-existent. It was all really in mine and Dylan's head, and that's when the kind of seed for your role began to grow in my head, and I was thinking we need someone to really help us to improve like efficiency and the way that we work as a business, both internally, and obviously that will help us externally as well. And I think the other thing is as well is the fact that we're a completely distributed team. We rely heavily on technology to collaborate with each other, to maintain open lines of communication, and make that the service that we provide for our customers a seamless one. And what that means from an ops perspective is that there's just so much to it when you document it. And like you said, we've got the overarching operations piece, which sits across all of the sort of major locations which we have, which is obviously US, UK, and Australia. But then you have very specific operations tasks and processes which align just to those locations, and the legalities that sit behind it, and the client processes, and everything like that. So it's there's definitely a lot to it, and there's definitely a lot of moving parts.
Yeah, definitely.
What I thought we might talk about today is a major part of what we've been working on since it was implemented in, I think it was July last year, which is our customer experience platform, which is, as we know, is Ask Nicely. So just to give some context to anyone watching or anyone listening, our whole mission as a business at Digitalent is to deliver the best experience possible, recruitment experience possible for our customers. And when we say customers, we mean clients and candidates in equal measure. Before we brought on Ask Nicely as a platform and embedded it into our organization, I was very conscious of the fact that if anyone had ever asked me, how are you tracking against that mission, company mission, I would not have been able to give them a concrete answer as to how we're doing against that mission. And I think that I was conscious both externally of how that would be perceived, obviously to our clients and our candidates as well, but also internally as we're growing the team as well. I really wanted to be able to point to something tangible to say that this is how we're doing against that, and also to make sure that if there are any things that were highlighted by surveying our customers that we needed to work on, or training, and I think again this goes back to the whole, we're a distributed team. It's unlike a traditional recruitment company in terms of everyone's in the same office normally when you're a startup, and you can hear conversations that they're having with customers and everything like that. So obviously there's a huge trust element there with the staff to be representing the company in the right way. But the fact of the matter is we just didn't know, especially for unsuccessful candidates, so candidates who have come into a process and who maybe withdrawn for whatever reason, or they didn't get the role in the end. We knew that successful candidates, people that we placed, thought a lot of us because we were getting testimonials from them, and they were saying really good things, and they were referring us on to other candidates, and likewise on the client front, we were getting repeat business, often in an exclusive capacity. But what we didn't know was that bigger piece from our perspective, which was all the candidates and clients that we potentially didn't place with, and who we weren't able to, unfortunately, place them into a role successfully. We were sort of wandering off into a distance, and we didn't know if they were saying good things about us, or that they thought that we could have improved in certain areas. And I was really keen to find out what they thought. So eventually, after deliberating on different platforms, we eventually went with Ask Nicely. And the good thing I think about Ask Nicely at the time was that, unlike some of the other platforms, it and this was never anything that I kind of set out to to achieve, really. It was the Ask Nicely's platform generates a net promoter score. At the time, I knew what our net promoter score was because a previous employer of mine had a net promoter score, but I didn't fully understand how it was generated and what went into it and everything like that. So the more I found out about it, the more I thought actually it could be quite good to understand that. And yeah, so when we implemented it, we started getting feedback come through, and I think for the types of candidates and clients that we deal with from a tech and creative perspective, the way that the UI represents itself is quite good for us because it's it looks almost like a how would you describe it, like a sort of chat conversation, doesn't it? The way that it sort of pops up. What's the word I'm looking for? It's like a it's gone out of my head. What's the word? When you go on a website and it's like a little chat bubble in the bottom.
Oh yeah, I know what you mean.
Like AI. It's it'll come back to me. But I think that's quite representative of the people that we're interacting with because it flows really nicely and everything like that. So but yeah, I remember talking to you about it and telling you about the fact we've got a customer experience platform and a net promoter score at the time, which we initially set out to have because I'd done some research into like what's a good net promoter score from a recruitment agency perspective. And a lot of the things that I was reading were saying to me, if you get a 50, if you get a net promoter score of 50, you're doing quite well because it's a services-based company. You're obviously it's not a BTC product as such. You're dealing with people and providing the service and everything like that. And I think for companies like recruitment agencies and like estate agents and accounting firms and companies like that, then that's a reasonable score. So when you came on board, and I remember telling you about a score, I remember you saying, "What?"
Yeah, I was definitely like, that. I don't think you understood how phenomenal it was as a score. Like you, I've worked in companies before where we've brought in NPS, we've worked with NPS in service-based industries as well, and not come anywhere near that. And I was like, is that one response? Is that all you've had?
Yeah.
It's huge.
Yes. So I mean, for people listening at the moment, our current score is 90, just above 95. Is that right?
Yeah.
And we've had it implemented, and we're surveying. Like I said, we're surveying a lot of candidates, every week across all those three, locations, major locations. And like I said, not just the candidates we place, but if you think about, the amount of candidates that are involved in a process, especially if it's a role where there's a multiple of 2 or 3, sometimes you could be talking, anywhere from 5 to 10, 15, 20 candidates sometimes that are attached to one specific role. And I'll be honest with you, I was surprised myself, to be honest, when things started coming back, especially from the candidates who weren't successful, but everyone seemed to say good things about. And it's funny because before you implement, you're expecting, and I think when recruitment agencies, I mean, we talk about this all the time. It's quite a basic thing in life, which when you say what you mean and do what you say type thing. And when you see comments come back from your customers and the things that they really appreciate, a lot of the time it's actually really basic stuff. It's not rocket science. It's things like, constant communication, timely feedback from a candidate perspective, speed of service from a client perspective, it's not this like revolutionary, things just come out of nowhere that you would never expect, and it's actually really basic things that you can definitely replicate as a business.
Definitely. I mean, I think, it's a really hot topic in the market at the moment, because obviously throughout 2020, the job market's just been, like absolutely huge in terms of people looking for jobs. So you see it coming up all the time. The amount of people that say, I've applied for X amount of jobs. I've heard back from, 3 out of 100 if they're lucky. That's probably quite a good statistic.
Yeah.
And I think people struggle with giving honest feedback. Like you just mentioned, a lot of our responses are from unsuccessful candidates, because obviously you put in more forward than what you require for the job. And sometimes all you want to know is, but why didn't I get it? And what do I need to do differently next time? I think feedback is absolutely key. So when you see comments coming back saying, actually, I got quite honest feedback, I got quick feedback, I actually got feedback. So many places just don't take that time to contact candidates back. I mean, I've learned over the last few months, recruitment it's a quick market. You've got to be quick off the mark. Sometimes you're competing with other agencies, and so you've got to find those candidates quickly. And so if one is unsuccessful, I do understand the pressure that you've got to find some replacement candidates and you've got to move quickly. But I think the time and care taken from the team in general, just to go back to those candidates and say, look, sorry, this time it wasn't right, this is what you can do. That's why the score's so high, or part of the reason.
Yeah. No, absolutely. I mean, it links to a lot of areas of the business, I think, in terms of, like, for instance, the way that our business is set up, there's a lot of trust on the staff, and there's not a huge amount of pressure with regards to meaningless KPIs, which you often see in other recruitment agencies, such as amount of cold calls you have to make and stuff, which we obviously stay away from as a business. And I think there's a culture in other recruitment agencies, and I've seen it because I've worked in companies like this before, where you're under so much pressure to bill X amount of money per month, and it's quite toxic if you don't hit that. That you tend to, there's a real afterthought on care doesn't even, or quality control, if you want to call it that, doesn't even come into it. It's very much bums on seats. How many placements can you make? You treat the candidates that you place with a load of care. You treat the clients that are giving you business with a load of care, and the other candidates are almost kind of cannon fodder, unfortunately. And I think that's one of the main reasons why the recruitment industry is such a bad name, because it seems like, if you're going to make me money as a candidate, I'll treat you nice, and if you're not, then I'll forget about you. I won't give you the feedback because I've got better things to do and everything like that. And I think that's genuinely the wrong attitude, because certainly from like a long-term brand perspective, those things come back around to haunt you. And if you're, I think, a niche specialist as well, working in a vertical market, you don't want to be creating a bad reputation in the candidate market for it as an agency who doesn't take care of their candidates, irrespective of whether they get the job or not. So
definitely. And I think, like you just alluded to there, in terms of the long-term game, you don't know where those people are going to pop back up again. One day they might be the hiring manager of a client that you're trying to bring on board. People's careers go in lots of different directions. So, I understand the pressure around KPIs, but I do think that treating people like people is the start of, building a good brand and having a good reputation. But, just being pretty genuine about what you're doing, that's why people stay loyal, and that, they'll, like, clients would keep coming back to use you, and candidates will always look to you, particularly if they're contracting, of, where's my next opportunity. So yeah, I think it's absolutely key.
Definitely. I mean, and the other thing to mention about the whole journey that we've been on with Ask Nicely and our Net Promoter Score and everything is, if you think about what's really at the heart of internally within recruitment industries and what type of individuals exist in sales teams within recruitment agencies, in general, they're highly competitive. They're sales people at the end of the day. But not just highly competitive. I mean, the way that our culture is, as you know, is we don't compete internally. We collaborate and we share information and share candidates and try and genuinely help each other, which I think even someone like Alex, when he came on board, was really surprised at, because he'd never worked in an environment like that before. It was very much like, the opposite. You don't share the information with your which sounds crazy, it's like you're on the same team, but there's this culture within other agencies that people are pitted against their teammates for who, like, the leaderboard and like who can, XYZ can, make the most money and make the most placements and stuff. What that leads to is a scarcity of information sharing and a lack of collaboration in general. So when you have recruiters who are highly competitive, who exist within a collaborative environment, and one that's focused on customer experience, which not a lot of agencies, I don't think, are, then I think what happens there is when individuals see their own Net Promoter Score being high, they become highly protective of it, which is great. It's great for the company. It's great for them as individuals and their client and candidate base. It's great for the clients and candidates and the service that they receive. And it's just perfect for everyone. And they do become really, super protected, as we've seen of the scores and not just the scores, but the feedback. So the scores are one thing, and you get a score which is automatically generated. But what we've found probably more valuable is the feedback and the comments that have come in from our clients and candidates specific to consultants. Sometimes it's about the company in general, but quite oftentimes it's about specific, consultants and how they interact. And I think that has really reinforced the culture internally of helping each other and giving kudos where it's deserved. And also when things, when we have had the occasion of maybe negative feedback come in, which obviously is always going to happen. We have this mindset of, we want to find out why, and we want to try and find out why as quickly as we can, so that we can try and rectify it and follow it up to see if there's anything that we could have done better. And I think it takes, for a company to do that, quite a humble culture to not take it too personally. And I think one thing that's helped us actually for that we haven't mentioned is its integration with Slack. Because we obviously use Slack as our main internal communication tool. But do you want to give everyone a rundown of how we use Slack with Ask Nicely and how that works?
Yeah, I mean, it's a super simple integration, so that when somebody puts a response in, it all automatically feeds through to Slack, and the whole team will get a notification that there's a scoring. So what you find really quickly is that will come in, and then across different time zones, the whole team will chime in with like, "Oh, amazing work, Alex or Dylan or whoever." So it really generates this like team kind of congratulations. It also keeps it really visible. So, like you say, there's the odd time where the score comes in lower, and firstly, that person's straight on it going, yeah, I've already got a call booked in with them, I'm going to find out, or I've spoken to them. But also the rest of the team tend to go in and have a little bit of a look. And they go that step further, where they'll look back at notes and communications, and they're like, yeah, I think, you seem to have done everything, or maybe it's just that, particular person, or they were unsuccessful. So they don't just look at it and go, yeah, great. There's a lot of camaraderie there in terms of good scores, but they do also investigate when that score's not as high as it should be. Nobody's asking them to do that. They're just genuinely interested.
Yeah, you do find that, and that's another unexpected thing, when you set out on this journey, because it's like you don't realize that little things like that would have such a big impact. But I think it's encouraging to see that, because like you said, it's not like there's no Mickey taking, or like people sort of like wanting to like say anything negative to their colleagues about when things don't go wrong. It's a genuine thing of like, how can we help, and how can we sort of improve.
Absolutely. And I think what it's doing is setting the benchmark for the future of the company, because nobody was going to be able to join this company and accept anything less than a 9 or a 10 as being, what we'd want. And that is the whole point behind MPS. You're supposed to look for your 9s and 10s. But most of us would say, on average, if you were filling out a survey, what would you score? Well, if we had a really good experience, we'd probably score an 8 and think that was really good. So, there are a lot of companies that would say, actually, well, anything 7 and over, we're happy with, because it's still a good score.
Yeah.
Whereas what we're saying is, well, anything less than a 9, is not okay. Even a 9, you sort of raise an eyebrow and go,
that's the thing. When you get a 9, everyone's like, a 9? What's going on there?
Where was that magic sparkle? And the feedback is usually really great as well. It was like, oh yeah, it was amazing. This person was brilliant. You're like, right, well, that's called 10, not 9.
That's the thing. And it's funny as well, because like when you do get an 8, for example, or like we've had occasions obviously in the past where someone's, like they said, they've hit the wrong button and stuff, like they've marked as like a 4. And the impact that has on the overall company MPS, I mean, it literally like shaves off like 10 or 15 points, like boom, like that. And everyone's like, whoa, what's going on? All of a sudden we're out of the 90s and we're into like the the 80s and stuff. So it's amazing how one score can really have a detrimental impact on your MPS. But no, it's been so far. I mean, I'm sure. I was going to say, I'm sure it's not always going to be like that. I really hope it will be as high, but it is like we mentioned before we started pressing record. When you mention it to clients who we've never worked with before, I often sense that there's this sort of like disbelief, and like, I don't know. I don't know if I believe you on that, because obviously a lot of these companies are in product-based companies, B2C a lot of the time, and it's actually extremely difficult, if not impossible, to get anything even close to that score for those types of companies. So I always see not always, but I sometimes see a little bit of a raised eyebrows, like, really? And it's like, no, honestly, so
and there's definitely, there's volume of responses in there as well. We're not talking just a few. This is, there's volume every month. So,
and it's going back to July as well. Like last year, it's not like we're talking about, because initially when we had implemented, I was thinking it's like 3 months worth of responses or 6 months worth of responses. Now we're approaching a year. And like you say, we've had that kind of volume. So it's been great to keep it at that level for such a long time.
Definitely. And I think, the argument is that as you grow or as you get more, then, like you just said, well, how do you keep the score there? But I think just because of the way the guys respond to it at the moment, and, they're so invested in having those high scores, I can't see anybody being able to join and say, oh, well, yeah, it was an 8, because the rest of us will be saying, well, right, so get on the phone and call them and find out why it wasn't a 10.
Yeah.
You know, it's never going to be okay because the benchmark has been set so high.
Yeah, I think as long as, you know, even if we, you know, in the future we grow to a much bigger company, which touch wood, we you know, we hopefully do. If we have 50 or 100 people who eventually work for Digitalent or who are out there speaking to customers, I'm sure the score will be low. But as long as I think there's that culture of, we expect to gather feedback from everybody that we deal with, you know, and accept the feedback, both good and bad. But as long as there's that culture of, we want to try and improve always in what we're doing, because we all recognize we're not the finished article. Even on an individual basis, we're always looking for improvements, and I think that is the most important thing. So the score's great. I think it's the feedback mainly from people that you're interacting with, and you know, on a business level, especially with how we operate, obviously working distributed and remote, often at great distance between our candidates and our clients that we're working with. We're not oftentimes meeting them in person for, you know, for coffees and sort of gauging what they think of you and stuff like that. So I think as long as that continues, it would be, you know, important. I'm going to try and show an example here of, so if we turn our cameras off, Zara, I'm going to show an example here of a real-time NPS score. So hopefully, can you see that on your side?
Yeah, I can see that.
So, as you can see here, we started in July, and it quickly went up to like 85.7 for August, and then it's hovered around that mark of like 100. Obviously, it's obviously sat at 100 for this month. This score only shows you for the last 30 days. But you see, if I could show you the whole system, which unfortunately I can't because there's a lot of names mentioned and everything, which obviously goes against, you know, GDPR and everything. But you can see it's literally just like a ream of like nine and tens. But what's such an important thing for us is to have this really amazing feedback, and it's spitting up those common themes, so you can see, you know, from July to where we are now, a lot of those, you know, sort of different themes come through. As you can see down here, it breaks it down into like price, speed, and service. But there's a lot more, and we've kind of we've added in a new couple of features, haven't we? To ask nicely, Zara, like,
Yeah.
with the. Let me just open the. Okay, put the thingy back on. But do you want to talk just to finish it all off briefly, to talk about how we what we've done to change the system and how that might improve things moving forward?
Yeah, so I mean, you know, when the surveys go out, they obviously just have the standard question of, would you recommend this client? And you know, as soon as you've put that score in, the next question is, and what's the reason for your score? So if it's lower, slightly different questions to if you've got the 9s or 10s.
Yeah.
And the answers before, you know, they were absolutely fine, a little bit long-winded, and maybe a bit repetitive in places. So we've just changed that slightly. So if you score a 9 or a 10 now, what you actually get is, you know, would you like to sort of give a compliment to your recruiter? So let's actually highlight what you were really good at.
Yeah.
And then there is a bit of a comments thing. So if there's anything else they want to add, you know, where we get that crucial feedback, then great.
Yeah.
And where that score is lower than a 9, then what they get is, okay, so what could we have done better?
Yeah.
And it's short, sweet, but it's across, you know, a few different themes, as you would expect, you know, the whole if it's a candidate or even a client, you know, communication, understanding the business needs, and they are slightly different for candidate and client, depending on just in terms of the feedback that we want to understand.
Yeah.
But then what the guys also get is an individual dashboard, so they can start to look at where are my strengths and what do I need to work on. And that, I think, is probably more valuable than just saying, well, you got a 10 or you got a 9. It's actually like, let's celebrate what you're really good at, and then let's look at development areas. And I think as we grow, that's going to become absolutely invaluable to us, particularly me in operations, looking at this, being able to go back and say, right, there's a bit of a theme coming through here. So, let's do some training, let's do something to kind of focus in on that.
Yeah.
But also still taking the time to celebrate what the guys do well. So, I like the change now. It's a great platform, actually, that it allows you to do this. So you can see the overall, you can see the individuals.
Yeah.
As you said before, we're not big really on competing internally, because it kind of creates the wrong culture for us, the wrong message. But you can kind of see where you're in within the company. Now, at the moment, everybody's on a 10, so there's no competition, and that will be really interesting going forward.
Definitely, yeah. Well, listen, thank you very much for joining us on your very first Digitales episode. We've got so much going on in the operations side of the business that I'm sure we'll have plenty to talk about throughout the rest of the year. So yeah, thanks for joining us, Zara.
Yeah, my pleasure.
We shall see you again soon.
Thanks very much.
Thank you.